Alright, everybody, peace. Welcome to the STBY Basketball Show. Wherever or however you're listening, we're so grateful to have you here with us. As you guys know, Sean Cottle, and we've got a wonderful show for today, guys. We're going to be discussing our Final Four predictions for the NCAA Women's Basketball Tournament. And let me just start by saying this, guys. This is the most talent that I've seen in women's college basketball since its inception. And I know this is something that I've said continuously for the past 3 seasons, but it just shows the growth and development of women's basketball. Every single year for the past 3 seasons, I've said that this has been the most talent that I've seen at one time in women's college basketball. And the talent continues to grow, it continues to get better. And this is the most parity that I've seen in women's college basketball in a very long time. And it's not only great for the sport, but it's also great for the development of women's college basketball and women's basketball as a whole. And also, we can see the positive effects that the ratings for women's college basketball that's having on on smaller markets or smaller regions from the high school level to the AAU level, even up to the WNBA, the professional level. So everyone is benefiting from the increased marketability of women's college basketball. And the reason that they're able to have so much market value or marketability is because these players are staying, or they have to stay in college for at least 3 years or until they're 21. And that allows, this is something we talk about continuously on the show, that allows the fan base to develop a relationship with these players. And now fans know who Olivia Miles is, who Paige Beckers is, who Tahina Powpow is, who these players are when they go into the draft. And so now there's more of an understanding of who these players are, how they play, what their personality is like when they go into the WNBA. And now fans are more invested in these players when they do make it to the professional level. But I digress. So guys, let's go ahead and get into it, right? Let's get into our Final Four predictions. Listen, like I said, this is the most talent I've seen at one point in time in women's college basketball since I've started watching women's college basketball about 20 years ago. And I'm excited to say the least. And each region, we have the Spokane region, the Birmingham region. Each region and each quadrant is filled with a multitude of possibilities that could come, possible exciting matchups, possible upsets. And let me just start off by saying I'm confident with every decision that I make, every prediction that I make across any sports, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, hockey, tennis. I'm quite confident in every decision, every prediction that I make. However, when it comes to this Final Four prediction that I'm going to be making, this is perhaps the least amount of confidence I've had. And it's just because of the sheer talent and the sheer parity, like I said, that is in women's college basketball right now. I started off this year by saying that I thought that Notre Dame was by far and ahead the best team in women's college basketball and had the most talented starting five. However, we saw that Notre Dame had early struggles throughout in the beginning of the season, and then they went on a tear, and then they struggled a bit towards the end of the season, losing to Louisville and Duke in the ACC tournament. And I also said that South Carolina was perhaps the second best team, and that they had a legitimate chance of making a national championship run. And they started out strong, and once again, South Carolina also went on a little bit of a rough patch where they lost to UConn, and they had some struggles. But also, to be fair, they lost to Texas. Also, to be fair, though, they were in a very difficult stretch of their schedule. And then you could say UCLA could look like they were the most dominant team throughout the course of the season until they went against USC and they lost. And USC has had a couple losses as well that were a bit alarming. And then also Texas struggling against LSU, and then also losing to South Carolina in the SEC championship game, convincingly, I might add. And you could argue that TCU has been one of the most consistent teams in women's college basketball, though they play in a weaker conference in the Big 12. But you can't penalize a team for who they play. They play who they play. allegedly. But like I said, guys, so we're gonna give our Final Four predictions, and this is, like I said, this has been the most talent I've seen in women's college basketball since its inception, or at least since I started watching women's college basketball. And before I give my Final Four prediction, I want to talk about a couple of teams that have a very legitimate chance of making a deep run in this tournament. And two of those teams are Florida State and Kentucky. And the reason I say Florida State is Florida State had the most efficient offense in women's college basketball throughout the entire season, and they're led by Tanai Latson, who actually led the ACC in scoring, led the nation in scoring, and unfortunately was not awarded ACC Player of the Year. That award was given to Hannah Hidalgo, and I do have a lot of contention with that, and I know why that decision was made. It's purely due to marketability, market value. It's easier to market Hannah Hidalgo to the masses in comparison to Sanaya Latson because of Hannah Hidalgo's name recognition. She plays at a quote unquote bigger school in Notre Dame, and as well as physical attributes that tend to be easier to market for those elite execs in media. But if you are a student in the game, if you watch these games consistently over the course of the season, there's no question that Tanai Latson should have been named ACC Player of the Year. And that's to take nothing away from Hannah Hidalgo. Hannah Hidalgo was, if I'm not mistaken, an All-American, and she was second in the ACC in scoring, led the nation in steals, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong about that, one of you guys can correct me. But like I said, it's to take nothing away from Hannah Hidalgo, but there's no question that Tanai Latson should have won ACC Player of the Year. And with Florida State's, their offensive efficiency, their defensive efficiency has also gotten better over the course of the season, and that was something that they struggled with early on in the season. But Florida State has their sixth seed in their matchup with George Mason in the first round. And if Florida State, if they win the first round, then they'll, in all likelihood, get a second round matchup with LSU. And if Florida State can get past LSU and make it to the Sweet 16, then I do believe that Florida State has a very legitimate chance of getting past potential matchups in Michigan State or NC State. But they do have a legitimate chance of making a deep run in this NCAA tournament. If Florida State can get past LSU, do not be surprised if Florida State makes a run to the Final Four. And that's because of their offensive potency and their efficiency. And there's no team, in my opinion, in women's college basketball right now that can score, just go bucket for bucket with Florida State, except for maybe Notre Dame and maybe UCLA. But in terms of pure offensive efficiency, there's not many teams that can go bucket for bucket with Florida State, and that's because of Sanai Latson. And the other team that I want to talk about is Kentucky as well. Kentucky, led by who I believe is the best point guard in women's college basketball, or the second best point guard in women's college basketball, Georgia Amore. And Kenny Brooks, in his first year at Kentucky, led Kentucky to the SEC quarterfinals of the SEC tournament, led Kentucky to their best record in over 6 years. And they are a 4 seed, and I think they're ranked a little low, but I think they've been ranked low all season. I believe that Kentucky has not been given the credit that they deserve. I believe that Kentucky has been a top 10 team all season based on their level of play. And though they struggled against Oklahoma in the SEC tournament, Oklahoma's a great team, another great team offensively. They like to get up and down the court. And Kentucky just didn't shoot the ball well that game. But Kentucky is a 4 seed. They're ranked as a 4 seed, but I believe they're more like a 2 seed in terms of their talent level and, like I said, their level of play. They're one of the top 5 teams in the nation in blocks. And they're led by Claire Strack and Amelia Hassett in the low post, and Tiani Keys as well. So they've got a lot of length in that front court. And they do a great job of dominating the boards, limiting possessions for other teams. And like I said, offensively, they just shoot the ball so well. My only concern is that offensively, Georgia Amore has to do so much for them. I'm a little bit concerned about uh, the balance in scoring. Will Kentucky be able to still be efficient offensively if Georgia Amore struggles? And most teams over the course of this season, they decided to double Georgia Amore, make it physical for her, be more physical with her in the front court and the back court, and bump her a lot off those screens to tire her out and to prevent Kentucky to get into offensive rhythm. And what a lot of teams are also doing, they're attacking Georgia Amore on the defensive end as well. So when she's on defense, they normally get a lot of switches onto her that forces her to guard more on ball, and obviously that tires her out and makes her less efficient on the offensive end. So that's my only concern for Kentucky is can they still be efficient offensively if Georgia Amore for some reason struggles? But because of Georgia Amore's professionalism and her ability to be consistent over the course of the season, I do believe that she will be able to provide the necessary effort and play style for Kentucky to make a deep run uh, into the tournament. And Kentucky has a 4 seed. They're matched up with Liberty, and in the next round, they in all likelihood will be matched up with Kansas State, who's a 5 seed. And once again, if Kentucky can get past Kansas State, then they'll have a matchup with USC in the Sweet 16, and I believe that when it gets down to it, that could be a pick'em game. I am very confident in saying that Kentucky has a legitimate chance of defeating USC because despite having Kiki Arioffen and Gigi Watkins in that front court, USC still struggles with rebounding, and they struggle with perimeter scorers. And this is all stuff that Kentucky does well. They rebound well, and they have a lot of perimeter shooting. And USC is a team that likes to slow down the pace of the game, playing the half court, while Kentucky likes to get up and down. And I believe the matchup bodes well for Kentucky. However, I don't believe Kentucky has anyone that can guard and defend Juju Watkins one-on-one. So expect to see a lot of help, a lot of doubles if Kentucky ends up getting matched up with USC in the Sweet 16. But as of right now, I do believe that Kentucky has a legitimate chance of defeating USC in the Sweet 16. And I believe if that's the case, if Kentucky can get past USC, then I believe they have a legitimate chance of also defeating UConn as well. But I do believe that a matchup with UConn is more difficult for Kentucky than a matchup with USC. But I do believe USC is a better team than UConn. We all know that basketball, when it comes down to it, it's about matchups. And some teams just match up better with other teams. And with this tournament style, the March Madness, you don't get as much time to prep for these games, especially in the first and second weeks. So, I'm interested to see how that works. So, once again, Florida State and Kentucky are 2 teams that I'm excited to see. And these are 2 teams that have a legitimate chance of making a deep run in the NCAA tournament. However, when it comes to my final 4 predictions, out of that Region 1 for Spokane, I do have, I do have UCLA coming out of that region. It was between them and, like I said, Florida State. However, I do believe that UCLA's size and their depth, particularly in the front court, led by Lauren Betts, I believe it will be too much for Florida State. So I have UCLA coming out of Region 1 from Spokane, and then out of Region 2, Birmingham, I have South Carolina. I believe South Carolina is just peaking at the right time. We saw what they did against Texas in the SEC championship game, led by Sinai Fagan, Chloe Kitts, Bree Hall, Raven Johnson, Tina Powpow, Malaysia Foot Wiley, Tessa Johnson. There's a plethora of talent. Joyce Edwards. I mean, this is, in the way it's been for the past 3 years, the deepest team in women's college basketball. They can go 1 to 10. They can go 1 through 10. And the 5 players that come off the bench, if they had their own team, they would probably make the NCAA tournament as well. That's just how talented South Carolina is. And their shooting has gotten better. There was a point in the season where they struggled shooting the ball because there wasn't a lot of movement and flow offensively. But now they're starting to move the ball well, and they're starting to shoot the ball better also. And the post players are starting to create, not just in the low post and the block, but also in the high post and the elbow extended with Chloe Kitts and Snide Fagan and Big Phillips. Both of those post players do an excellent job of shooting the ball from those ranges, and that just spreads the floor and opens up easy scoring opportunities for the guards, like I said, with Tina Pow and Bree Hall and Malaysia for Wiley. So I have, like I said, South Carolina coming out of Region 2 in Birmingham. Um, they will face a tough matchup though against Duke. I do believe Duke will make it to the Elite Eight. Um, but don't be surprised also if Oregon upsets Vanderbilt um, in that first round matchup. But like I said, I do have South Carolina coming out of Region 2 with Birmingham. And Region 3, I have Notre Dame. But Region 3 probably has the most talent, the most difficult uh, bracket out of all the brackets. Listen, we have Texas, Tennessee, Ohio State, like I said, Notre Dame, Louisville, and TCU. TCU is 2C, by the way. But like I said, Notre Dame, like I said, it's the beginning of the year. Notre Dame is, in my opinion, the most talented, just starting 5 in women's college basketball with Olivia Miles, Hannah Hidalgo, Sonia Citron, uh, Maddie Westbeld, Leah Tu King. All 5 of those players, 3, with Olivia, Sonia, and Maddie, are all going to be drafted in the top 10 in this upcoming draft. No question about it. And Leah Tu King is, in all likelihood, going to be drafted as well. So just in terms of starting 5, this is the best starting 5 in women's college basketball at Notre Dame. And my only concern for Notre Dame is their depth. They just don't have a lot of depth coming off the bench, which normally tends to happen so when you have such an elite starting 5. But I do believe that Notre Dame is going to match up well with TCU, and I do believe that Notre Dame also will match up well with Texas. So, like I said, I had Notre Dame coming out of this Region 3 for Birmingham, and Region 4 for Spokane. Listen, we talked about it. Listen, I have Kentucky. I have Kentucky getting past USC as well as UConn, and I think that Kentucky's going to peak at the right time, though they struggled against Oklahoma since the last time we saw them. I believe that Kenny Brooks is going to create a system, create a little bit of a more fluid ball movement to get the ball off Georgia Amore's hands and maybe move her off the ball a little bit more to create less pressure for her and keep the defensive side more honest. And Kentucky, I think, will get past USC, and I think if they get past USC, they will also be able to get past UConn as well. And that's who I have for my Final Four. I have UCLA, South Carolina, Notre Dame, and Kentucky. And if you guys have any questions or concerns about that, please feel free to leave in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. Am I wrong for saying Kentucky is going to have a deep run in this NCAA tournament? And is Texas the favorite to come out of Region 3 instead of Notre Dame? And did I make the right choice with choosing South Carolina as well and UCLA coming out of their region as well? Like I said, guys, I'm confident in all the predictions that I make. However, in all predictions I made across all sports since we started Bobby 4 years ago, this is the least amount of confidence that I've had, but I'm still confident when it comes to this decision, to this prediction. So like I said, I have South Carolina, UCLA, Kentucky, and Notre Dame for my Final Four. But let me know what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. With that being said, guys, that's it for our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a wonderful show. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content that we post daily. And if you'd like to gain exclusive content from the Started Body Show, you can do so by following us on patreon.com, where you can find exclusive content that we post daily. With that being said, guys, continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions, and until next time, guys.